This is RadioFire.com. Yours truly, Diamond K, in here. My man Greg in the building. What's up, man?
How you doing? How you doing?
Hey, it's funny because we were talking about this. We're going to talk about Suge Knight.
Yep.
And I guess the rise and fall of Suge Knight. What's crazy about it for Suge Knight is that they just announced the other day, as we're doing this recording, eligible for parole 2037.
Jeez.
2037 is when he will be eligible for parole.
And you know the sad thing about this is that he did it to himself.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's going to be 73 years old at that time.
Wow. Where do we start?
I mean, we have been fans of hip hop since the beginning.
Exactly.
And Suge Knight is one of them figures, and we're going to do this with a lot of different rap figures. Suge Knight is one of the figures that we have talked about for over 20 years. Yeah.
Easy.
Over 20 years. What's the first time you remember hearing about Suge Knight?
I think one of the first times I heard about Suge Knight was the Snoop Dogg murder trial.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I think he started becoming a presence on TV
Mm-hmm.
and being known.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean to cut you off, but it seems like he was pretty much kind of behind the scenes up until then.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And so this was during the recording of Doggy Style when this allegedly happened.
I think Doggy Style had just came out.
Yeah.
I think Doggy Style had just came out.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this is the early days of Death Row.
Yeah.
Now, even going back further than that, we didn't really know who he was at this point, but talking about the split from Ruthless to Death Row for Dr. Dre.
Right.
He was involved in that.
Very instrumental.
And but we didn't know who he was at this point. He's just, some guy.
But a little did we know he was a factor even at that time.
In the actual breakup.
Yeah, because even with, when he finished playing football, he got into bodyguard and management.
Which is a natural thing.
Right. He had the size. It was a pretty good thing, And I think he started off with Bobby Brown.
Right.
And then I think then he went on to started his own publishing company.
Which is ironic, considering that he cannot make music.
Right.
Can't produce music.
Right.
But like you said, he's just a big guy, and he's managing some people.
But at that time, one of my favorites back in the days, Vanilla Ice.
Are you being serious?
Yeah. Because
Ice Ice Baby, people don't want to admit it,
right,
was a good song.
It was, and it sold a lot of records.
Definitely.
It made a lot of money.
Definitely.
There was controversy about Suge having him somehow signing over part of the royalties in some way or another.
Right.
It's
right.
debatable. We don't know.
There's that rumor about hanging him over the balcony or something like that. There was that rumor. Back then, did you think that was a real thing? Like, I didn't even think stuff like that really happened.
No.
I mean, we saw the 5 Heartbeats, right? But we talking about real life.
Exactly. And like I say, I didn't believe it happened. Of course, Vanilla Ice has changed his stories over the years about that event.
Several times, yes.
Several times. So,
yeah.
I mean, we don't know if it happened or not, but somehow I think he may have did benefit off of the publishing for that song.
Yeah.
And then that goes to lead us into, NWA. When they came back from tour, D.O.C. made his move out of there, and I believe Suge was his manager when he left.
Right.
And okay, so that leads us up to that. Okay, and then with Dr. Dre, you know, I guess he finally looked into his situation and found out that it wasn't right.
After Cube left.
Looked into his situation.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if this is true. I guess he inquired with Suge of looking into his situation for him. You know, and I guess at this time, I guess it was the D.O.C, Suge and Dre talking about starting their own label.
Right.
Good idea for the time. But it was a problem. And you know what that problem was, DK?
Eazy-E?
Well, that and Eazy-E had them under contract.
Big problem.
D.O.C, Dr. Dre, and Michelle A.
Do you think that they could have maybe tried to work something out with Eazy?
I'm going to say, my personal opinion, I'm going to say no, because when you got the goose that's laying the golden eggs, you're not going to let that go with Dr. Dre. Because as you recall, and I recall at that time frame, everything he did was $1 million plus. Platinum. Period.
Dr. Dre, yeah, absolutely.
So,
and we are not just speaking on this as people, journalists just talking about it. Mm-hmm. We were fans of this music, you know, because we had other friends that didn't like this kind of music.
Right.
We listened to Ruthless Records projects and Death Row projects, but we're at the Ruthless stage right now. And I felt after Cube left, I didn't want Cube to leave. I wanted him to stay.
We thought he was crazy.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, for the youngins now, I'm trying to come up with an example that they could understand. It's like if Quavo says, I'm leaving Amigos and this record company and all this stuff, and I'm going somewhere else. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Just like an instrumental member. Like Cube was so instrumental in the foundation. And then the turnaround, he leaves. Mm-hmm. We still have some success, but they only did, to my remembering, from him leaving, they dropped the Michelle A album after he left, right?
Yeah.
They dropped D.O.C. album.
Well, he was actually on that.
But they had recorded it.
Right,
But
he left shortly after.
Yeah, was it the last song? He's on the last song,
the
right?
Grand finale.
Grand finale, right. And the Niggas for Life album, they dropped that.
Right. They dropped the EP also.
Right. 100 Miles and Running. What about Above the Law? Above the Law came out after he left. He wasn't there when Murder Rap was out.
That was 1990. Yeah, he's already gone.
Yeah,
Cube was already gone.
So they had success after he left.
He had a lot of success.
You know, do we count Pimp House Players Click as a success?
Everything sold, man.
Yeah,
everything sold. Like I say, the 100 Miles and Running, the Niggas for Life, the Above the Law, all that stuff sold $1 million. Even Penthouse Players Click.
Right. Now, do you think if Dre had left, these things would have probably still been in the can? You still got Yella that can help out with production. You still got L.A. Dre. You still had other people that could have helped. Arabian Prince. You still had people that could have helped out. Do you think if Dre had left when Cube left, they would have been successful still?
At that time when Cube left, if Dre would have left at that time, I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
I'm going to say no. But what I will say, when Dre did leave, Eazy was successful because he brought in different producers. I mean, he was smart.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we were talking about in a separate related thing that we're going to do another one of these on Dame Dash. But we were talking about being able to move forward after you have a split and still being able to do something after that. Okay. So Eazy, who doesn't get enough credit, we probably need to do one of these on Eazy one day. Eazy don't get enough credit.
Very smart.
Eazy dealt with Cube leaving,
Dr. Dre leaving,
and Dre leaving. And after Dre left, you still have Bone Thugs. You still have Black Eyed Peas. You know, you still had Eazy's own solo stuff.
And
Ren
stuff went platinum.
Yes.
You know.
Kiss My Black Ass.
Yeah, it went platinum.
Yeah. And you still had, so Easy was able to still move after these people were gone.
I mean,
but
even with MC Ren Shock of the Hour, that went platinum. I mean, okay, but back to Suge Knight now, because we talking about the NW thing, because this played a pivotal part in the, you know, the building of Suge.
yeah.
Okay, we don't know how he got. You know, it's controversy about how they got out of the contracts. You know, a deal was reached. With agreement with Ruthless Records.
Maybe involving a gun and a bunch of dudes.
Yeah, but
a deal was reached.
But Easy did get a percentage of.
After the fact, yes.
After the fact, he did.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now,
and you let him go.
So we go to the pre-death row.
No, but before we get there, however he got Easy to agree, him getting Easy to agree to let Dre, Michelle, and D.O.C. go, raised Suge's profile.
Oh, it gave him like a lot of points. That was
Yeah.
status.
Yeah.
I mean, because this guy had a lot of power and he meant business. And
Yeah.
I guess that I guess there was no he would do things that you know, it didn't matter what it took to get it done.
Right.
You know, tactics, I'm gonna say. Then like I say, okay, now that they're out of, I guess they reached a deal. Now I guess D.O.C., Suge, and Dre are gonna start their own thing. Okay, so everything is starting to get up. Okay, Dre got the Deep Cover soundtrack, and he got the song for it, Deep Cover. New MC is brought to him, which is Snoop Doggy Dogg. Via Warren G.
His half brother.
Right.
Wow.
They do the song. It's a mega hit.
Yeah.
A Star Is Born in Snoop Dogg. You know, a rebirth for Dr. Dre. You know, and then okay, they get that, and then you know, I don't know how D.O.C. got kind of pushed out the picture as far as part of the owner of the business or co-owner of the business.
So he was he was a co-owner?
He was supposed to be.
Because he was a big star.
He was.
He was a big star.
Very talented. You know?
But we're talking about this is D.O.C. after the accident. So, and I think that probably played a part in it. Because if there's no D.O.C. accident, right? And D.O.C. leaves, D.O.C. is probably on Deep Cover with
Easy.
Dr. Dre.
Yeah, and D.O.C. To me would have been from the West Coast, man. He would have killed the 90s, man.
We frequently talk about this being wrestling fans. We frequently talk about D.O.C. being the Magnum TA of hip hop.
Exactly.
And for you more mature fans, Magnum TA being a very popular wrestler who was right on the verge of breaking to being like a big star, and then he has a motorcycle accident. And it completely changed everything for him. Right. And same thing like with D.O.C.
Yeah, was never able to wrestle again. And it's just like with the D.O.C. was never able because his vocal cords were damaged and his actual rapping career was over.
Yeah, he could barely talk past a whisper.
Right. But he was still awesome with the pen.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And you know,
no doubt,
very influential on, you know, the Dog Pound, Snoop, getting those guys.
He had feelings about the way the death row structure was set up.
Right.
But I don't think he could do nothing about it.
No, because you know, like at that time, DK, he was in a position where he really couldn't do nothing but just maybe contribute to helping the artist. You know, because okay, now that the Deep Cover soundtrack is done, okay, they get everything working and get Death Row about to get it up and running. Start working on the Chronic. Now, I'm gonna bring up a name, and I want you to tell the people what you think about this name I'm about to tell you, because they say that this figure, which was a big drug kingpin at the time, was a major factor in them getting part of the financing, or a major part of the financing for start Death Row, and that's Michael Harriot.
Yep.
What do you think?
Well, we're talking about the time with Dick Griffey and that time period.
Right, exactly.
This is when they're trying to get the funding together to even start this thing.
Right.
So they need payroll, they need a building, they need a studio, they need all these things. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to go. Dick Griffey, I would probably say, is probably the Suge Knight of his era.
Right.
Somebody that used intimidation to move these record companies to do things. Mm-hmm. But he's older. And now Suge Knight is, we talking about maybe early 30s at this point.
Probably.
Yeah. So, young guy, hungry, with a roster of people that have talent, and more importantly than anything, has a fan base already built in with Dr. Dre, Michelle A, D.O.C, and now with Snoop.
Right.
So they're in demand and in need of something. And Suge Knight was able to acquire funds, allegedly,
right,
from this incarcerated kingpin that is supposed to be seed money for the actual label.
Right. And he was supposed to, quote unquote, be another partner.
Like a silent partner.
A silent partner.
However, he wasn't that silent.
Right. Okay, now.
Did you believe any of this?
No, at the time, no. But when you think about it, the money had to come from somewhere.
Because Dre didn't have it.
Money. Yeah, Dre didn't have the money.
D.O.C. didn't have
the money.
Michelle A didn't have it in her bra. Okay. Suge didn't have it.
Right. So, when now.
Or Snoop.
Because over the years, so much has come out about, this situation in Death Row that, you learn more and more each year. Let me ask you one quick question. What do you honestly think about Suge Knight?
I think the same thing about Suge Knight that I always have. And I always thought that Suge Knight should have played the back, stayed in the back. Now I liked this cigar smoking image. Mm-hmm. Now I realized that we had a problem. If you remember the Source magazine cover that had featured all of them,
right.
And they did a spread individually about one of the Death Row people at the time. It's that famous black cover, and they're all. I think he's kind of doing something like this with this. Yeah. I said this guy is trying to be in the forefront more than his picture was bigger than the artist's picture, and I said this doesn't normally happen. You know what I mean? We don't normally. Berry Gordy talked about Motown after the fact a lot. But during the time, the spreads weren't Berry Gordy in the center and the Temptations way in the back, and you making this Berry Gordy. You know what I mean? Because we're buying the Temptations.
Right, and it was about the Temptations.
It was about the Temptations, and so if we get this rare look of whoever's behind the scenes controlling things, that's a benefit to us, and it's a rare thing to see, but it's not something that you always get. But with Suge, every time they were talking about Death Row, we were seeing Suge Knight. And it's just like, is he coming out with an album? Is he, like, what is the purpose of this?
Right.
What's the reason for all of this? And it was to feed his ego. So I always felt that he was too ego-driven. Mm-hmm. But he had so much potential talent, and he could have been making hits for Death Row today. Death Row run correctly signs the game. Mm-hmm. Death Row, run correctly signs YG. Death Row runs correctly signs Kendrick Lamar, because you're the premier label of the West Coast. So any West Coast artist, if you ran it correctly, 20 years later would have still been trying to sign to Death Row Records.
I agree with everything you said. This is another one that I'm gonna ask you this question. Well, I'm gonna say the question. I'm gonna answer it first, and then I want you to give me your intake, your take on it. Mm-hmm. Do you think that he ever was a good CEO?
No. Mm-hmm. No. Honestly, Suge Knight should have never been a CEO.
Right.
Muscle, okay. I call you when I need you. But because Dre is a studio rat, didn't want to get involved in this kind of stuff.
Right.
You need a person like Eazy-E because he wants to do that stuff. He'll make those decisions. Right. Eazy is a type person. Eazy was a much better CEO than Suge Knight, because Eazy, but he comes from the same background of the street. But while Eazy wasn't Muscle, Eazy hired Muscle. You know, Eazy would have guys around him, but y'all not calling the shots. I'm calling the shots.
Exactly.
You know, you can't have the brute calling the shots, because all he knows is rough tactics. In the boardroom, that shit doesn't work.
Right. You know, like I think that he was not a good CEO for the simple fact that he was sitting on top of a gold mine. You know, you got Dr. Dre. Jeez. You got Snoop. You got the Dogg Pound. I mean, you got all this talent. I mean, then you get Tupac. And you run a multi-million-dollar company like a street gang.
Right.
With this street gang tactics and mentality.
Right. Right.
You got millions and millions of dollars that y'all making, that y'all drawing in, and they really could have went on so much further had he really just stayed in the shadows, and stayed in the shadows, played his role, let Dre do the direction of the music. Okay, y'all both go 50-50 on the decision making as far as the business goes.
But why not be a silent partner? Why not put some capable CEO in position and just reap the benefits?
Because DK, I'm explaining something to you. The problem with what I think with Suge was when that money started rolling in, he got that power. He got even more power because he was already a knucklehead. And then when you got that mentality with millions of dollars, and you start associating yourself with people straight out the pen, giving them jobs as security or enforcers, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And
because you're having known gang members walking around the record company offices.
Right. And they're interfering with business.
Intimidating people,
making a toxic work environment. I mean, toxic, where when you got a genius like Dr. Dre that he can't even function, he doesn't even want to be around there. One quick story. When they were doing Ain't No Fun If the Homies Can't Have None, he came in, Warren G brought this up. He came in and said, y'all talking all this Crip shit. And he made Warren G change the part where it says 6-4 red to be exact, because he had to have his influence in there some kind of way.
You shouldn't be involved in that.
Right. You shouldn't.
The artist should just make the song.
Right. Exactly.
The artist should just be making the song. And when you have that kind of talk, it's just, you know what I mean? It's like you trying to punk him down. You know what I mean? And Warren G wasn't a blood.
He wasn't a gangbanger.
No. And so I don't think that one of the Crip members, he couldn't have done that with Snoop. You know what I mean? So it's just like I'm gonna punk him because I can, like, you know.
Right, because he, he had the muscle, the money, and the thuggish tactics, and like stuff like that, man. Like I say, it's they already working on a hit song. Why are you getting involved? You know.
What did you think about if going back to this time period, the talk of the creation of Death Row East?
I thought it was a bad idea.
Very bad.
Because for the simple fact, the climate at the time, because basically he started that East Coast West Coast, quote unquote beef, at the Source Awards, and it was a bad idea. What I would have did, and this really, this is one of my questions. I really think when Tupac's obligation with him was over, when those 3 albums were over, I really think he should have had Tupac really run the label. Death Row, period.
I think that would have been a good move.
Right.
You have a challenge there with Dre.
But Dre was already gone.
Yeah, Dre. Well, that's true. That's true. So Dre didn't like the environment.
Right.
I don't think honestly that Pac liked the environment. He
did.
dealt with it.
Yeah.
He's able to adapt to it, but it wasn't the most creative environment.
But the reason why, and I use Tupac as an example, or somebody that had an ear for music and talent. To me, Suge, he never had an ear for talent. He didn't bring nobody in.
Oh, wow. And he signed Danny Boy and the Realist. Was it called the Realist?
That's a joke.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
Nobody he signed was good. Did he sign Crooked Eye?
You know what? I never knew what the full story with that was because he never came out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, PD Pablo. It was random people that he would associate himself with.
It's like, dude, PD Pablo was a one-hit wonder pretty much.
Yeah.
And
it was a big hit, but it was just one.
Really, that's pretty much what it was. And like I say, man, he didn't have the ear because like really after Pac got killed, there
was no success after that.
It was no success, none. And then I remember, he put out the Snoop Dogg second album,
Dogg Father. Snoop made that album during the trial.
Right.
It was not focused. It was one of my least favorite Snoop albums and least favorite Death Row albums.
Right.
It holds up pretty good when you listen to it now. It just sounds skippable music. And this is it. We have these conversations about producers, artists, labels, blah blah blah, and it shows you the benefit of having a veteran producer involved, because the tracks themselves were done, right? But you need a producer with that ear that just knows those little things that make a song okay to great, like Dre could do. Right. Dre's involvement in Doggy Style, even though he probably didn't make every track, the little tweaks that he did helped it.
But another thing with the producers, not just for Suge stuff. I mean, not just for Snoop stuff, but for some reason, I don't know what it was with Suge, but was he not paying the producers?
Well, you have that.
The toxic environment.
You have that. One of our favorite producers for Death Row, Johnny J. Yep. Johnny J not paid. He's not the only one to say that. QD3 had issues getting paid for songs that he did, and he did really good songs for Tupac and others.
Right.
Daz talked about issues with payment. But this goes back to the fact that Suge is not a true CEO. So I just feel that where he should have set up structures and payments for these producers or the proper way to get a song or a track from somebody. He didn't know these things. So he's just doing like, how do we do in the streets? You know, this, that, and, you know, different things. And then money rolls in and you're like, oh, this money is coming from this or this money is coming from that. And then you start spending and he's giving it to gang members. But the producer the structure's never set up for the producer to get paid.
Because from what my understanding was with Death Row and like with these contracts, the only one that was under contract was Snoop.
Because just like Jay-Z and Dame Dash, a lot of these artists that Rockefeller had during the last years, Jay-Z wouldn't have co-signed those artists. Not to sign with us. Like, okay, they're cool and we can be on a compilation. We got a soundtrack to a movie. We can work with them. But we're not signing. Jay-Z wouldn't have signed MOP, even though they were good. Right. Jay-Z wouldn't have signed MOP. And then you go to Suge and Dre, they're artists that are around here that Dre would have never signed.
True, exactly.
Dre would have never signed these artists.
Right.
We can collaborate with them. We got Murder Was the Case soundtrack. We got Above the Rim. We got to fill some. Okay, fine. But he wouldn't have signed Danny Boy. I don't think, even though he worked with Jewel, I don't think he would have signed Jewel.
No.
You know, so you have these artists that are just sitting in limbo.
Right.
And then they're hanging around all day doing stuff for Suge. And then I'll sign you. I'll throw you a bone. I'll, demasculate you like he did with Danny Boy on that. I don't know if you remember Luke's Peep Show. Right. Interviews, and he's just belittling them and just, here, come here, sing real quick. Just like this kind of weird stuff that he was doing. I would have wanted to get away from him if I was Dre too.
Right. This guy, man, let me ask you a question before we get on to another, couple of questions. Why come you think Death Row didn't last?
Well, I think that the biggest issue with Death Row, and we haven't talked about this, and when I think about it now, it started off wrong. How are we going to be taken seriously as a label if we are called Death Row? That's a bad name.
Right, because and then what didn't help is them trying to live up to the image.
I mean, the image is one thing, but now, okay, let's talk about bigger business. Let's talk about getting sponsorships. Let's talk about tours. Let's talk about getting insurance for concerts. We're called Death Row. Our logo is a man in an electric chair. Okay, so when you're in the prison system and you're an inmate on death row, you are on the path to being your demise. If you think about it from a psychological standpoint, why as an artist would I want to come to death row? It sounds like the end. It's a bad name.
Exactly.
Why not High Power Productions? Because they use that. Right. Why not something that sounds better?
Well, it was initially supposed to have been Future Shock Records,
which sounds better.
But somehow in the process,
I'm sure Suge was the one who wanted to call it Death Row.
And okay, let's talk about. I got two categories: good things and bad things. Should. Let's start off with the good things first. Now, this guy, this guy's college educated. He went to El Camino College and he went to UNLV. Played college football, and he actually went to the pros. Didn't last long, and then shortly after that, he got into the bodyguard thing, and
because he had an injury, right?
Right. And like I say, he actually made it to the Los Angeles Rams. So Suge, what complexes me about him,
and that's a feat in itself to do that.
This guy is not stupid. He's smart, but there's the gang affiliation.
But let's look at that on a deeper level. Growing up in Compton,
right?
In certain neighborhoods, as you and I well know, you have to, in order to survive, you have to pick a side. Where you live it can depend on whether or not you can just get by with the affiliation, as a lot of artists did and did the music thing. You know what I mean? Or whether you have to claim a set.
True.
So Suge was the type of person that I feel could have gotten through without, being an active member.
Right.
Do you think that he was a banger? Because I don't.
And I'm gonna say no. I really think Suge always wanted to be a gangbanger.
Yeah.
I think deep down that's really what he wanted to be, but he had a gift of playing football or sports. And like I say, when I understand that he grew up around this stuff, it's, like I say, if that's what's going on in your particular neighborhood, but I think that's really what he always wanted to be.
Right.
And but the thing is, man, you were you on top of a gold mine, and you were a multi-millionaire, and you bringing this element into the mix, man, and it's just a recipe for disaster.
When do you transition, though? Even if me being a tough guy is what got me here.
Listen, man.
When do you make the transition? How many millions of dollars do you need to make before you make the transition and say, let me fall back?
Diamond, the whole object is to uplift yourself and get you and your family out of that environment.
They were out of the environment to a degree.
Right.
He didn't live in Compton.
Right.
But he still had all the guys from the hood right there.
Right, but he was still a factor there.
Yep.
Because
definitely.
Because he was still, he was dealing with these guys.
Definitely.
In the neighborhood.
Definitely.
Giving these guys jobs from the neighborhood.
But we keep saying that. That's not a bad thing.
It's not, but he was using these guys to intimidate people, extort people, hurt people.
That's a bad thing.
And
he didn't uplift them.
Right, and like you say, man, if it's like this, man. If you got money, a person's going to do anything that you pretty much want. And he was dealing with guys, man, that were, ex-felons, murderers, everything, man. And, you got that element to the mix, man. You are dangerous.
Now, we're talking about good. Him hiring guys from the neighborhood, do we put him on that trait on the good side or the bad side?
It's both. Because Hammer did the same thing. But Hammer helped people. He helped many people. But, he didn't bring that element of that thug stuff to the table.
True.
That's, like I say, Suge, it was a good thing, him helping people, but you're not, you're putting a couple dollars in their pocket, but they're also doing your bidding at the same point,
Do you remember what you used to tell me about the guys that Suge had with him at the time?
What's that?
In the 90s? You used to say, when that money runs out, they're going to be gone.
And they were gone. Because, like, when, I think when he got out in, was it the late 90s?
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever it was. Yeah. When he got out, and he still had money, but, those guys became less and less and less and less because really he took a major fall, in the 2000s. And when that money was dwindling, them guys were gone. And that's what it was, man. And these are not your friends. People are going to do anything because there's a check involved. It's money involved.
Right.
Right. Now, there were reports of, I've heard the stories, he's got multiple children. I've heard he's a good father. Which I don't find it hard to believe.
I don't either.
Because and that's probably a good thing. Yeah, he's a good father. It's kind of like a the good side and the bad side.
Right.
It's kind of like this guy does have a heart. And another thing while we on this. He did help a lot of people out, man. Like as far as rent, people houses getting foreclosed on.
Yes.
He like even he did put up the money for the council for Snoop murder trial.
Right.
He did help a lot of people out, and I'm not sitting there saying this guy's a monster because he's not, but he just didn't use his platform, man, for the better good. You know.
This is a personal thing about him, and we haven't really talked too much personal stuff about him. But having the relationship with Michelle, you can fall in love with somebody that you maybe shouldn't, but there's also lines. Do you think that love was genuine? Do you think it was spite on both parts? We're just speculating here, but what do you think about that?
My honest opinion is I think it was spite.
From whose part?
Both of them. I think it was a slap in the face from both of them to Dre, and spite to Dre.
Yeah.
Now, she claims that Dre left her high and dry. We don't know. But, okay, Michelle A was pretty much a non-factor at that time. By the time Dre left Death Row.
You mean musically?
Musically.
Okay.
She hadn't did nothing.
Had Hung Jury come out? I don't think it had come out. Yeah.
And I think Dre left 95 or whatever it was.
Yep.
So, and then she did have a young child by Dre, which probably was about 5 years old at the time or whatever, 6, whatever. She needed a source of income. So, maybe sleeping with Suge was her opportunity. Maybe Suge sleeping with her and throw it in Dre's face, and she winds up pregnant, having a baby by Suge. You got a baby by Suge, and you got a baby by Dr. Dre. 2 mortal enemies. And like I say, I don't think it was love. Like I say, I think
didn't last long.
Spite. I think they were opportunists. I think she was an opportunist, and it is what it is. Question for you. Now, we did mention that Suge got Snoop off. Well, he provided the counsel to help him get off. Do you think Suge was protecting his investment?
Absolutely. That's why I don't necessarily put this in the good category, because he did pay for his counsel.
Right.
And if I remember correctly, it was Dave Kenner.
Yeah.
Who was technically Suge's counsel.
Yeah, Death Row's counsel.
With Death Row's counsel.
Yeah, Suge.
And he represented Suge Knight many times after that.
Right.
So this is his guy.
Mm-hmm.
This is. Can you do this for me? I got you. Me to you. You know what I'm saying? Right. They had probably that kind of relationship. Mm-hmm. And, he did a lot of things for him. Mm-hmm. But if you think about the conflict here, he probably was looking over paperwork for them as well. Their paperwork, artist paperwork. There's probably were conflicts of interest.
Yeah.
Because he probably was looking over musical things for them too.
Right. It was.
And so Dave Kenner is just like with, Suge supposedly bailing out Tupac, because that was the urban legend that he put the money up to get Tupac out, right. Which he did not. He acquired the money, but he technically didn't. He was the face in front of it. Interscope provided the money.
Exactly.
So Suge likes to take credit for things that benefit him more than they benefit anybody else, or just as much. It benefited Snoop the most.
Right.
But Snoop going down at this time cripples Death Row.
Yeah, because that was the main star at the time. He was it.
Yes.
Okay. Because I had those questions under my good things category. Now let's get to the.
But let's also look at this. Snoop should have been able to pay for his own defense. So the fact that he couldn't shows you that things were not being run correctly.
Exactly.
If Drake was to catch a case, Lord forbid, but if Drake was to catch a case, we wouldn't need Baby to put up the money for. Drake would be able to take care of his own lawyer. Now, of course, Drake is further along his career than Snoop was at this point. But I'm just saying, to pay for your attorney, you can't pay for an attorney.
But even though Snoop was under contract, Suge had the power at the time, and he was probably You know, we don't know what the publishing was. We don't know what the show money was. I mean, we don't know how he was supposed to get paid or what he was supposed to get paid. So it's kind of like, you know, or maybe he really wasn't paying him his fair share.
And that's what I'm going with.
Because I've heard stories like from Daz and them that they were on allowances.
Yeah, I heard that too.
So with that being said, I mean, I'm giving you peanuts.
Right. But this goes back to the artist signing stuff for the gold chain or a Jeep or, you know what I mean, whatever that we've heard the horror stories of.
Because you know, you remember, I think after Tupac died, I think Suge was saying that he owed him like $7 million at the time. So he was charging
which doesn't
him,
make sense.
Which doesn't make sense because they was charging him for any and everything.
Right.
And hold up, so everything he did. I mean, all eyes on me. I mean, that stuff's so crazy, units. But you know, I don't know, man. Now, let's talk about the downfall of Suge Knight and Death Row Records.
Because they're all connected.
I think the first piece from the first piece of the puzzle for the downfall was Dre leaving. That was the first piece. You know, that's your foundation.
Yeah.
And
that's your partner.
Right. And
because artists, and we talked about this many times before over the years, artists came to Death Row because of Dr. Dre. Mm-hmm. Not because we want to be bullied by Suge. You know what I want to do? I want to get bullied by Suge Knight, so I'm going to sign to Death Row. Right. No. The attraction to Death Row was Dr. Dre.
Mm-hmm. Like I say, man, you know, Dre leaving.
And if he leaves, why are we going here again?
Exactly. You know, Dre leaving, him screwing over producers, not paying, you know, the artists and the producers right. And then I think that what really did it was when Tupac got killed. You know? Because
he was literally beside Tupac when he was killed.
Mm-hmm. Another thing, man, like I think, you know, like when Tupac got killed, and I think Suge had the probation violation for the, you know, the incident at the hotel.
Yeah.
And then that's when all the artists, you know, left the label.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much it then, you know, and then...
then we become a label that's just selling the catalog.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Just selling the catalog.
And then, like, you know, I can recall after Suge, you know, got violated on the probation, they released Michelle A's second album, Hung Jury, in '97, which wasn't promoted.
Why would you call an R&B album Hung Jury?
Because Suge probably named it that. You know, it didn't do well.
No hits.
It was no hits. And you know that it was over, man.
We skipped over Dog Pound for a second, and I know this is not about Death Row, but I think that Suge and Death Row are so closely aligned. You can have a label that the CEO or founder is not there anymore, but the label is able to move forward.
Right.
But this label was not like that. Mm-hmm. When Suge went down, the label went down, and he started having to sell off pieces of the company and rights, different projects and things just to try to keep the lights on at his house. Right. So it was so closely aligned.
Because, you know, he prided himself on having control of his own masters. Remember that?
Yeah, being one of the few people that did. Yeah. And at the time...
Which was unheard of.
That's what I'm saying. That kind of goes into the good part. So where we're looking at this with rose-colored glasses. In real time, he was celebrated at a certain point as a black man, powerful, that the white-controlled, Jewish-controlled labels feared. And this was a sign of strength. So what he was promoting was not the fact that I have musical prowess, is that I'm a strong black man putting it to these people and getting our money, and if you want to be successful, come here.
And like you say, having control of those masters was major, major, major. I mean, that was unheard of, especially for an up and coming label.
Yes.
I mean, out the gate, that was unheard
With,
of.
I mean, you're not talking about a label that's been around 5 years.
Right, yeah. This was out the gate, they had control. You know,
Yeah.
that, I mean, which
Yeah.
was is super smart, but, you know,
Yeah.
once again, one of the you know, the many mistakes that he made is that, you know, one thing led to another. He had to sell, you know, the masses, the catalog or whatever, you know, for survival.
Right.
And then like, you know, like with the probation, the numerous times in and out of jail.
After Pac's death.
Yeah, just I mean, he just made his reputation. He hurt himself. Really, he hurt himself.
What about the barbershop incident? The incident with the barber.
But he got knocked out.
Yes.
Well, listen, man. Once again, at that time, he didn't have those gangbangers around him. His hired help.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And okay, you by yourself. You a man. I'm a man. Let's knuckle up. And the guy knocked him out. You know, and
You pop anybody in this spot here, you can go down.
And I know Suge's a big dude, but just because you're big don't mean you can fight.
But the guy who knocked out Suge was around our height. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I didn't know that.
Yes. And it's even easier for somebody our height to knock out somebody like Suge because we got a much closer shot at his chin to knock him out.
Exactly.
And whereas though the big guy has to punch down, we punching up like Glass Joe on Mike Tyson Punch Out.
Right. and you know, man, like, and then like another downfall with Suge and Death Row is that he just wasn't able to find talent. I mean, like we go back to the Eazy-E thing at the time.
Yeah.
Or like even Puff Daddy. They were smart enough where they knew talent. And they were able, because like I say, even when Cube left and Dre left, Eazy had probably sold even more records after they left. Because
Which is crazy. Yeah.
he brought in good producers and, you know, he got good writers
Yeah.
for different projects. And then, you know, like with Bone, when he brought Bone in, I mean, you know, Ren stuff doing well, everything was still selling. You know, I mean,
And Easy still making hits himself.
Yeah, Eazy was, you know, his stuff was
BG
selling.
Knockout, Gangsta
Right.
Dre stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, and like with Suge not being able to find talent, you're done. And then, like you say, his ego was too big where he didn't want to hire somebody to run it.
Right.
You know, like somebody energetic and did new to business, new music,
Right.
new talent, and that. And that
But
was,
why not empower Daz?
because Suge, the thing is, man, Suge wants complete control. He wants the spotlight. He wants to rule everything with an iron fist. You know, and another big downfall, man, with him, and I'm gonna touch a nerve with this one, was his jealousy of Bad Boy, Puffy and Biggie. That was a major one because he was so consumed with Bad Boy, Puffy, Biggie. I mean, yeah, they were hot, but they're on the East Coast. You getting your money over here,
Right.
They getting their
Right.
money over there. What is the problem?
Should be no problem.
It shouldn't be no damn problem, you know. But he was so consumed with it, so jealous with it. Listen, man, y'all both doing big things. Be happy for each other. I mean, Puffy wasn't sweating it, you know, but Suge was just beside himself at the success of Bad Boy.
Right.
You know, Puffy, you know, like once again, you have to give your hats off to Puffy. You know, he did his thing.
Oh yeah.
You know, as far as the talent he had, you know, the talent that he brought to that label.
He was a businessman first.
He was an innovator. He was a businessman. He had a hell of an ear.
And he knew every aspect of the business, the dancing side, the production side, the showmanship side,
Right.
the
Exactly.
promotion side, the
Exactly.
being an artist, all of that. He knew all of that. And so he was able to multiple hits through Craig Mack, through Biggie, through 112, through Faith, through, you know, Mary J, just everybody, all of the people that he worked with, he was able to still keep it going.
Right.
Uh,
And see, man, you know, another thing with Suge, man, he loved the power. and
Yeah.
and he loved the fear that he put in people.
Yeah.
It seemed like it just seemed like to me he got off on that stuff, man.
Yeah.
And then like you know like the stupid beef with this East Coast West Coast thing, that was like one of the dumbest things that was, you know, it changed rap because of the stupidity of it.
And it wasn't good because it cut the country up in a section, and it made it difficult for you to go to the West Coast or West Coast to come to the East Coast. It just made it uncomfortable when we were supposed to be trying to get money.
Right. And
It made it uncomfortable.
and like, man, Suge's reputation in the industry, man, he was feared by music executives, man. He
Yeah.
was, man, and because, you know, he was going to do whatever he could to do to get this soundtrack or do whatever. He was going to, you know, do whatever it took to get what he needed to get. And like I said,
Yeah.
and see, once again, that's bad for business. You know what I mean? You know, it's bad for business. Okay, I got one for you, DK. Now, you know he had Tupac. Do you think Tupac was his mouthpiece in escalating the East Coast West Coast beef?
Yes, I definitely do. I definitely
You know,
do.
to
I
a
definitely
major
do.
level. I mean,
I definitely do.
because it got to the point where this thing got out of hand.
I think, but I don't. I think that he probably put the battery in Tupac's back, but at the same time, Tupac did things to impress him. You know what I mean? He did things to try to impress him, and it ultimately led to his demise. For all of this, Tupac could have just stayed in jail.
Because he would eventually got out.
He would have eventually got out, and he would have been living.
Right.
He would not have been gone now,
Because he
or
was
when
already,
when he left.
Because he was already an established star.
Yes, megastar.
Now, the thing with Suge, man, and I know who we're talking about, but what I think with Suge, man, like especially like up until he got the this last trouble that he got into, I pretty much think he was irrelevant.
Oh yeah, he's been irrelevant for
Yeah,
years.
he's been irrelevant for years, and he just tried to stay into the mix, like showing up at this thing, showing up at that, you know, trying to intimidate this person, and you know, he was irrelevant, man. And to me, man, he really just should have whatever money he had left, you know, enjoyed his life.
Right.
You know, and because you probably still had a probably decent amount of money at the time. Go away, enjoy. It's over with. You still set for life. Enjoy your life, and then, you know, and take it from there. You know, because, you know, he was still technically young.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And then, you know, then the thing happens with the with the guy getting killed, getting run over.
So we go to the Straight Outta Compton movie, which is the what they were filming 2015,
Right.
which I thought was a great movie.
Yeah, me too.
Groundbreaking for us to see, having lived as fans of NWA in real time, to see its story come to the big screen was a great thing. Suge Knight, like you said, trying to control, just having this jealousy. He had a jealousy of Diddy, as you said, and he had a jealousy of Dr. Dre.
Exactly.
And you have Dre and Cube coming together, telling this story along with the other members of NWA, and Suge feeling I should be involved. I want to make sure I'm represented right. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. This ain't your story.
Right, which he had nothing to do with it. 'Cause like I told you before, man, if he felt that way about the way he was portrayed, okay, he probably could have took legal action, which probably wouldn't amount.
I don't
to
think
nothing.
you could, because Lil Kim didn't like how she was portrayed in Notorious, and
he could have did his own documentary.
and he did back in the day. He did documentaries.
Right.
Well, he did things but all of his stuff just centered around him. You know what I mean? And so at this point, Suge, 2015, Suge is irrelevant. Nobody's doing business with him.
Right.
Nobody wants to deal with him. Nobody has to deal with him. You don't own the catalog to the music. Nothing. There's no need for us to even have to deal with you. So, of course, in addition to that, Cube does not like you. Dre does not like you.
Right.
Nobody involved wants you here or around. So, what makes you think there's a good idea to come?
Exactly. And like I was just saying about whatever little bit of money he had left. Now I know in 2008 he went through a bankruptcy, and you know he got shot in 2014.
Yep.
Numerous other run-ins with the altercations and you know the law and everything, and then this incident with Terry Carter. It's like, first of all, you shouldn't even have been up there, you know, because all this could have been prevented. You know, I said it before, I say it again. You know, all this could have been prevented. You went up there, in my opinion, to start some shit.
Definitely.
You know, to start some shit. You know, going up there trying, move his weight around and everything. Starting some shit, thinking he's gonna punk these people.
Right.
And it backfired him.
Right.
And as a result, you know, you put yourself into a world of shit. And whatever you had left, you know, is gone. And you know, it all caught up with him. And as a result, you know, for the plea deal and everything, he agreed to a 28-year sentence. Now, I got another question for you, Don, okay? You ready for this one? Now, over the years with Suge, like I said, he did a lot of good things for some people, but he also made a lot of enemies. He also, and I mean made a lot, and he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Now with him in state prison,
Yep.
With all these enemies.
He's at Wasco State Prison, so according to the CDC, California Department of Corrections. Lot of people on the inside that don't care for you.
Exactly. And
you
then,
don't have any power now.
Right. Because the thing is, man, and then it all goes back to this gang, this blood gang affiliation, which is not looking good because, you know, it's a lot of Crips.
Is that the biggest gang? The Crips?
Yeah, they're bigger than the Bloods.
Yeah.
But the thing is with him, you know, when he went to jail, you know, I think it was 96, whenever it was, he had a lot of money. You know?
And he was protected.
And he was protected. You know, he had a lot of people protecting him. And now with the cash flow pretty much dwindled away, he's probably going to be on PC, protective custody, for pretty much majority of the time. Because I really can't see him in general population, man.
Without somebody taking a shot at him.
Yeah, without somebody, because it's going to happen.
And he can't defend himself at this point.
No, he can't. You know, because he's 53 now, and you're in it like the element that you tried to promote. You know, with the thug stuff, with the gang stuff. Now you're in that actual element with the jail thing. You know, and like I say, you know, having money is one thing, but it's like a 180 right now. Everything's completely changed. You know, and like I say, let me ask you this one question: do you feel sorry for him?
You know, I don't like to see any black man in prison.
Exactly.
I don't. You know, I would have loved for this to end another way.
Right.
You know, because he has children. He has a son that's very vocal, trying to defend him on social media and in public. And so I don't fault his son because that's his father.
Exactly.
And what is he supposed to do?
Yeah, and that's what he is supposed to do.
What is he supposed to do? So I don't fault his son at all. And like you said, he probably raised him pretty good.
I'm quite sure probably the good schools and everything.
Yeah.
else.
So I'm sorry that he has children, and their view of their father and the world's view of him is probably totally different.
And I'm quite sure it is.
So I feel bad for that. But ultimately, you reap what you sow.
True.
You get what you put out.
Right.
The world is round. Stuff you throw will come back and hit you in the face. And that is what happened to Suge Knight. He's had you or me wouldn't get the amount of opportunities that he's had. He's been given so many opportunities to rehabilitate himself, to change his image. America loves a comeback story. He could have been the change. He could have flipped and turned to something good. Look how Mike Tyson has been able to rehabilitate his image. White America accepts Mike Tyson.
Right.
And Black America, of course.
Do I feel sorry for Suge? It's sad. The situation is sad because, like I say, you got somebody, man, and this guy, man, he had the opportunity, to play, college football, pro football, college educated, man, run a successful business. I mean, he had so many opportunities, man.
Fine wine. I'm sure nice choices of women and all of that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, he had it. I mean, you had you at one point you had one of the best rosters of talent in history, and like I say, man, he just could not leave that street element alone. And like I say, I mean, it's sad. I mean, it's sad, man, because he really could have, if he would have really put his mind to it, he probably could have kept Death Row going.
Oh yeah.
He could have, because it wasn't hard to do. But like I say, man, even though he made a lot of mistakes with, the producers and the artists and stuff like that, man, I think anything with a conversation and an apology, they could have worked together to,
yes.
Yes. Hey, listen, man, I know I made these mistakes, yada, yada, yada. I want to get this thing going, we can do it together. And it could have been done, man,
And it would have been a great example for other young black guys to see, hey, you can disagree, you can come together, you can turn your life around, you can become a better person.
Right.
It would have been such a great thing to see. But now, what he has done is you can look at Suge Knight as an example of what not to do with your life.
And you know what? And with that said, I mean, that you can't say it no better than that, because Death Row, the way it was started, the way it was run, the way it was managed, and the downfall of it, this should be taught in a college classroom.
Yeah.
Of how not to run a multi-million-dollar business.
Right.
Anybody that has a business is going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. I don't care who you are. Even Barry Gordy made mistakes.
Yeah.
But when he made those mistakes, he didn't make them again. He learned from them.
Right.
That's why he was so successful. I believe, my honest opinion, had Easy lived, Ruthless will be around right now.
I agree.
Because one thing about him, man, he was smart. Like I say, Easy, he was a street guy, but he ran his business like a business. And the thing about it, because he kept that element of those two things apart. The business, it's my business, and it's the streets.
Right.
I always say it's a time and a place for everything.
Right.
And it is. But,
right.
Like I say, it's just sad, man. And it's sad, man, because the thing about it, man, with the amount of time he got, man, and when he gets out, man, he's going to be old. And that's sad, man,
Yeah, he's definitely going to be old, and hopefully his mindset will have changed. But Suge Knight, Marion Knight, for those that are interested, is inmate number BH6 4, 5, 8.
Sad.
Yeah, and this was one of the most feared guys in music at one time, and many people, because of that, are not feeling sorry for him.
Right, and like I say, man, a no contest plea to manslaughter.
Yeah,
and hit and run charges.
Yeah.
September 20th, 2018, he pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter and agreed to serve 28 years in prison.
And he's lucky because had he not,
on trial, it would have been more. It would have been.
They
because man, really, man, there wouldn't have been a jury that was going to show compassion for him. You know, with his reputation, it wouldn't have been, man.
Nowhere in this country,
no,
he would have got the same. He would have got same result everywhere. So, yeah. So
I mean, like I say,
that's it.
Like I say, it's like one of those stories, man. It's like a sad ending, you know, man. But you know, just hopefully somebody can learn from this.
Well, hopefully,
because, like I say, give me that opportunity. Shit, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's not that you can't be a street guy and be in music, because Jay Prince,
it's a lot of street guys.
Master P,
right? Master P. That's a good example.
Yeah, Master P is an example
person,
and he's a street guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's this. He's not he didn't grow up with a silver spoon in his mouth. Ms. Hawkins.
Everything he got.
Yeah.
You know, like P is super smart. I mean, his business mind is just through the roof. I mean, he's a hustler, man, and he's a businessman. I mean, and you have to respect what he did.
Well.
And like I say, he's one of the cases that you should use as an example on how to do what you got to do to succeed.
Yeah.
You know, Suge is what not to do.
Right.
You know, and it's sad, man.
I mean, Jay-Z's a street guy. You know, Jay-Z's from the street. But just because you're from the street doesn't mean that you have to be ignorant or ghetto or unsuccessful or in jail.
But Diamond, it comes a time where, you know, you got to leave that stuff behind.
Turn the corner.
Because all it's going to do is just get you caught up just like it did with him.
Right.
And he wasn't able to leave it behind.
When keeping it real goes wrong.
And that's what happens.
Yeah. So definitely thank you. We're going to do this ever so often. As many times as you can do it.
Hey, I got a suggestion before we go off.
Yeah.
You ready for this one?
Yeah.
The name is.
Okay.
You ready for this one? I've been thinking about this.
What is that?
I'm just saying.
I like it. I'm just saying.
That's right.